The NCAA tournament is here, but the transfer portal is right around the corner, and that means every team in the country, whether they are dancing or not, already is thinking about next season. To help us break it all down, we've got 24/7 national recruiting analyst and what I like to call the czar of the transfer portal, Travis Branham, joining us here on the show. Trav, first of all, thanks for being here. I'm hoping you can help break this down for the casual college basketball fans who are trying to figure what's going on and what the significance is of this upcoming Monday.
Yeah, so come Monday, you're going to see an absolute flood of players entering the transfer portal. Last year, the transfer portal opened the Monday immediately following Selection Sunday, but after a lot of pushback, the NCAA has delayed this opening to the Monday after the first weekend of the NCAA tournament. So what I'm expecting to happen right now is literally hundreds of players will enter the portal, but the majority of these players will be coming out of the mid and low major ranks. You will be seeing some of these high major players that are on teams that maybe they didn't make the tournament. In some cases, as we're already seeing, some of these kids are already declaring their intentions despite going to be playing in the NIT or these other postseason events. So you're going to be seeing a very large amount of mid and low major transfers sprinkled in with some high majors, and that's going to just continue on throughout the week before these teams continue to be eliminated as exit meetings begin to happen. Then you're going to really see the big fish start entering, and we are expecting some of the biggest names in the sport entering the transfer portal. And I want to preface this. These conversations, these negotiations, whether these kids are in the portals or not, are in the portal or not, with the amount of agents that have flooded into this space, these conversations and negotiations have already started as of early, not only just this week, but in the weeks leading up to it. And so the transfer portal will remain open for a shorter window of just 30 days this season, but this is not a permanent fix. I think as we're sitting here talking about the transfer portal, as these college basketball games are going on, nobody or absolutely everybody would love to see this thing pushed back to opening after the NCAA National Championship.
All right, Trav, I have referred to this as free agency of college basketball, and it's about to open on Monday. But like free agency of other professional leagues, because that's really what we're talking about right now, the deadline is already, you already know what's going to happen. To your point, there's already been negotiations. There's already been over 300 players who have said, come Monday, I am putting my name in the portal. However, there are some that have already been able to enter the portal, even though it technically doesn't open until Monday. Can you explain to us why that is?
Yeah, so right now, grad transfers are able to enter the transfer portal at any moment. And the bulk of these players that are in the transfer portal, it's well over 100 already at this point. For the most part, they're all grad transfers. However, if a coach has been fired or left, like we have seen at UNLV, like we've seen at Iowa, Indiana, Virginia, those players have a 30-day window that immediately begins after that departure, in which they can enter the transfer portal. So from UNLV, you've already seen several players transfer out of there. Iowa, Owen, Freeman, Josh Dix, and a handful of others that all enter the portal. And on the UNLV front, can't forget to mention Dedan Thomas. He is our #1 transfer currently in the portal, going to be one of the top point guards. So if you're a grad transfer, you can enter at any time. So you're seeing a lot of those kids enter now. And when there has been a firing like a Dedan Thomas, those kids have already entered the transfer portal and are fielding their phone calls and figuring out what these next steps will be for them.
And Trav, one of the interesting things to monitor is even the programs that are in the NCAA tournament, even potential NCAA tournament champions, are already actively recruiting the portal. Am I correct in what I'm hearing, that there might be an early favorite already for someone like Dedan Thomas?
Yeah, there's already schools being talked about, and frankly, Dedan was one that we were anticipating was going to transfer, whether Kruger was coming back or not. And obviously the departure of Kevin Kruger, who he had a great relationship with, obviously sealed his fate that he was going to hit the transfer portal. And so since he's been in there, there's one school in particular that keeps popping up, and that is not to say that they are the favorite, but the team to keep an eye on here is Florida. They Carlin Hartman, an assistant coach with the Gators, recruited Dedan Thomas back when he was at UNLV and played a role in that commitment. He is now with the Gators, and I would anticipate that relationship, that connection, and also the need that Florida has at the guard spot next year is going to make them a very viable option. But you're also going to be looking at several teams across the country. As I was talking to somebody earlier today, literally dozens of schools are already strongly pursuing with big NIL offers already on the table. And I think this one could move fairly quickly in a narrowing down of schools and getting a better feel for who will really be the options come late next week.
Trav, another name I want to ask you about is Malik Reneau at Indiana, because obviously Darren DeVries was announced as the head coach yesterday. Reneau has stated, or I guess he is in the portal because they had a coaching change. What do we know about that big fella and the impact that DeVries' hiring may or may not have on his status for next season?
Yeah, he's one I actually do not anticipate returning back to Bloomington. The school right now that I'm looking the closest at is the Georgia Bulldogs. Mike White and his staff recruited Malik heavily out of high school back at Florida. They actually got his commitment during the high school recruiting phase, but then obviously Mike White and his staff moved to Georgia. And Malik, once following, he reopened his recruitment and found his way to Indiana. They have an extremely strong relationship with Malik Reneau and his family. So right now, that's where I'm keeping an eye on. But again, that's not to say that they are the favorite, because as we have seen, and as I am hearing every single day right now, as these calls are being made, is anybody can come in and swoop in and steal a recruit. Doesn't matter what the pre-existing relationship was, and that NIL is going to play a significant factor in a lot of these recruitments.
Trav, I'm not sure if you saw on social media, but the Iowa fan base wasn't very happy with me the other night. I was on HQ suggesting that maybe it didn't make an overwhelming amount of sense to pay a head coach $4 million plus to go away when you didn't have the NIL to compete. But the constant rebuttal I got is we already know what we're doing, and once we get the guy, we're going to get even more money. Well, I'm not sure they know what they're doing, because DeVries just took the Indiana job. Obviously, Ben McCollum is the name that everybody's talking about at Drake, but he's going to have other options as well. My question is, with players like Josh Dix and Owen Freeman now in the portal, it's critical for Iowa to make a move quickly. What do we know about these two and both their games and what their process might look like?
Yeah, just on their games, Owen Freeman, a big, strong, physical post presence who can really score on the offensive end of the floor, has great hands and touch over both shoulders. He's going to have 2 years of eligibility remaining, has proven to be one of the best bigs in the Big Ten. Now, he is a bit of a liability on the defensive end of the floor, so finding the right fit in school where he can be a bit hidden and protected on that end of the floor will be very important in terms of not only just his success, but also the team's success and the impact on winning. Several schools are already in strong pursuit. I'm hearing this is going to be one of the larger NIL deals that we can anticipate this year. But schools that I'm currently hearing, Michigan, Gonzaga, but also several others out there are involved in regards to Josh Dix. To me, he's one of my favorites already to hit this transfer portal. He is rated as the number 2 current transfer that is already in there. A very skilled 6'6" wing/guard who can make shots all over the court, can create separation and rise up. Schools like Iowa State is one school that has popped up, as well as like Nebraska. There's been some whispers maybe Kentucky is involved there. But he will have several options at his disposal. And again, these are kids I anticipate will get very large NIL deals. And just based on the revenue share and the collectives, I think the money that is involved in this year's cycle could see some record-breaking deals, even more so than what we saw with Coleman Hawkins and Great Osobor last year.
All right, Trav, I also want to make note that there are players like Tucker DeVries, who is very clearly going to follow his father to Indiana. That's something everybody should watch for. And then Bryce Hopkins at Providence, there's a lot of assumptions about where he may be headed. I'll tell you what, Trav is going to be back on tomorrow's show. You can find it at 1 p.m. Eastern Time. We're going to continue to break down the latest in the transfer portal. I guarantee you we'll have some new names in the next 24 hours, as well as the implications on high school recruiting for from all of these coaching changes. Tell you what, if you want more coverage of the transfer portal, you can head on over to 247sports.com. This is a special promo code. You're not going to find it on social media. You only get it from watching this show. Promo code PORTAL. 60% off annual VIP memberships, and that deal ends April 23rd at the stroke of midnight.